Hi, my name is John Darrow. I'm the senior colorist at Water Tower Color. I'm back at the LG Roadshow. Big difference that I saw from last year to this year is the G5 panel. It is incredible. Something that stood out to me was the extra black level that you get with the reflections in the room turned on. I didn't think that last year it was that bad, but seeing it back to back and lined up, I see that it's a huge improvement now, removing those micro lenses from the panel. It's nice to see that people at home are going to have a much better display. Well, I do work on a lot of music documentaries. For Pink is one artist. Miley Cyrus was another one with Hannah Montana. We did a Jonas Brothers one. You know, working in documentary, the biggest challenge is that you have many different cameras. The first step is to make sure that they're all set up consistently. So I tend to build a LUT for each camera, and then we kind of apply that as a base. From there, then the best thing to do is to just really stay on the performance. I had an old mentor once, and he says, it's all about the money, you know, focus on the star. So, you know, different tricks. We would put power windows and things to really highlight them, almost as if you're running the lighting from the back of house and just kind of following the artist as they move through their show. To any of the viewers, it really puts you as if you're there at the concert instead of just watching a recording of it. When you're grading documentary footage, it's really important to let the footage be anachronistic of the time that it was captured, right? You don't want to throw a bunch of AI at it and take the soul away from it and a bunch of, you know, cleaning up all the noise and that kind of stuff. An approach that I try to do is say, all right, what would this look like if it was, you know, broadcasted in the 70s, in the 80s? What would this feel like if you were watching a print from that time period, right? You always want to stay true to that, because what that's doing in a documentary is it's setting a time and place. When you're trying to combine a lot of different sources from, you know, who knows, all over the years. So the first step is make sure that your footage is treated properly coming in, that you know what it is, that you know where it's come from, you know what the color space is, you know what the max range is, and bring that into your working space. At that point, when you go out, it should have a faithful representation of what it was. So making sure that the white balance is correct, making sure that the levels are correct from shot to shot, but again, without trying to clean it up too much, because you do want it to live in the time period that it was captured at. Another thing that we'll do often is fix certain issues that doesn't have anything to do with the aesthetic of the picture, right? If there's a little bit of flicker in there, I kind of like that, right? We want to leave that alone. But if one side of the frame is faded because the film element over time has degraded, well, we'll go ahead and try to fix that. Often with old, very old film, you'll see that the red channel starts to fade first, right? So a good move is to use the channel mixer in any of your color correction setups and mix back some of the blue and the green channel into that red to give you some of that skin tone back before you even start grading. So that's another one. It's kind of, I call that, you know, footage repair, not necessarily footage restoration. The level of color accuracy that LG gives you is hugely important, and that's because most of the time we're not working off of these consumer displays. We're working off professional reference displays. And what you never want is you never want to have a color bay or a DI theater where you walk into and each display looks different. So achieving, you know, 100% color volume is so paramount, because now you can actually have a very good representation on the larger consumer display than exactly what you get on your smaller reference display. Another nice thing is that I feel comfortable then having my clients approve something on those displays versus us all crowding around a small little 30-inch. It allows for more of a representation of what the end user, or why we make films in the first place, to share them. And so I think that it's really a benefit, and we've come a long way in the last few years, where now it's starting to be very hard to tell the differences. It is in the subtleties, it is in the details. These consumer displays are getting more and more better, and it's just getting to a point now where they're excellent. And I love this because now when you're at home, it truly is as it was intended. And that's all we ever asked for, right? Please give me the same thing that we saw in the finishing suite. We want that at home, and we're getting closer and closer to that. When Steven was shooting Contagion, he wanted to very much differentiate the different geographic locations, because it does take place all over the world, right? You know, the Midwest, we're going to be a cold blue. For anywhere that you were kind of close to the virus, right, it was a very strong kind of a warm yellow look. And so using these techniques, right, it was really just a device to help the viewer understand where they were geographically without having to explain it too much, right? You could see one image and you knew exactly where you were. I think for the other aspect of the strong yellows is that yellow can be, in a weird way, a warm color, but it can also be kind of a sickly color if you lean it towards the greener side of yellow. In both sides, you can kind of ride that line where you can kind of have a warmth to it, and you can have some, you know, invoke a sense of like that love and loss of losing a loved one, but at the same time, remember that this is, you know, kind of a story about a virus, and have some of those sickly greens come through when you're on that yellow side. It's a strange thing how it has its foot in both sides of the world. You know, it can be a lovely color and at the same time be a very sickly color as well. Well, see, the thing is, whenever you're working with, you know, any dark scenes or deep blacks, or very much like the last film that we just finished, Until Dawn, if you think of like some of like the old masters, like the Vermeers, or like you know, Caravaggio, where it's all about the play of how it comes out of darkness. You always want something that's very subtle. You always want those shadows to have a nice, smooth tonal gradient. And it's one of those things that's really hard to get when bit depth is reduced, right? When bit depth is reduced, it's very hard to have those steps that you need to get smooth tonal gradients coming out of shadows. So one of the things that I always pay attention to is how an image comes in and out of black. And how we do that is we tweak the curves and make sure that the toe of that curve is very, very soft, and we're compressing those details to the point where at that one step just above black, you can see something, and then it just comes very, very shallowly out of black, and in a very soft, naturalistic way. It's something that's very hard to do, but very effective when it's done. So as someone that was involved in the ambient light compensation development, one of the things that I would love to do is change how you view your media based on your environment. I would love to come over to your house, turn off your lights, and lower your shades. But we can't do that, right? So the only thing that we can control is how the display shows you what it was intended based on your current viewing conditions. And one of the ways that that happens is on every G5 TV, you basically have an ambient light detector, right? And that measures the general brightness of your room. So all we're doing is we're just compensating for whatever the viewing condition is, and we're able to see what the artistic intent was.
I'm Mike Smith. I'm a consultant for the movie industry. And I do a lot of image processing and color science work. We basically, you know, the industry embraced Filmmaker mode several years ago when it was introduced by the UHD Alliance, which makes the TVs basically disable the post-processing to make the images look like they were intended to look. And in Filmmaker mode, the TV tries to recreate the luminance and color levels of the reference sort of display, and you know, it's mission accomplished. Basically, you get a very high quality picture that looks like it was intended to look. The idea with the algorithm is it uses the light sensor that's on the TV, and the light sensor can sense when the room is bright and it compensates the image according to our process. And when the light sensor senses the image, the room is dark, then it goes back and turns off the processing and the algorithm and just is regular filmmaker mode again. We work with colorists that are used to working in in dark rooms, and we put them in this bright room. We made the room bright with the lights, and we basically had them adjust this parameter that compensated the image, so they were satisfied that the picture matched creatively with the reference environments, sort of the way the reference environment would look. And then we demonstrated it to different groups in Hollywood to get their input and feedback, and it was generally very positive. And then we codified it in the standard at UHD Alliance, and it's been released. That's what I believe LG's implemented in the new TVs this year. So it's exciting. I mean, they're the ultimate sort of supporters of Filmmaker Mode as the creative community. And so working with the creative community was important. Specifically, the colorists are used to turning knobs and seeing the picture change and making decisions about what they see. Is it too much? Is it not enough? Does it need something else? And they're comfortable doing that, and they understand the tools, and so it was a natural process for them.
I read books. After staring at a projector for 12 hours a day, I don't go home and say, no, I'm just kidding. I think the main thing to do is put it in filmmaker mode. If you don't put it in filmmaker mode, please turn off anything that has to do with motion. We don't want soap opera feels, right? And then make sure that you turn on ambient compensation, because, we want to make sure that you're seeing everything that was intended to see and that you're not losing anything. If you can, again, make sure to turn off all your lights and try to watch it in as dark as possible of a room. But if you can't do that, turn on ambient compensation, and that will allow for the best viewing experience. Oh gosh, top 4, that's tough. Top 4. Yeah, well, okay. This is going to be a hot take, but I love Chinatown. Chinatown is fantastic. It's quite possibly one of the best movies ever made. It's so perfect. Come on, Jack is fantastic. It's great. It's one of my favorite movies. I know this, and this is probably trite and cliche, but you're already talking about Godfather. Gordon Willis, Prince of Darkness, come on, that's one of the best shot films of all time. And then I remember watching it with my dad when I was probably too young to be watching that. And so I got really fond memories of that. And then you're just growing up and, watching that. And yeah, it's a gangster movie, but it's really a movie about family, right? And having watched that with my dad, it's got a soft spot in my heart, So I really, really enjoy The Godfather 1 and 2. The third one, we don't talk about the third one. Speaking of my father, he used to tell me a story when I was a very young kid, probably about 2 years old, and he caught me many times at like 2, 3 in the morning, taking the VHS that I had of Wizard of Oz, putting it in and working the TV when I was a small little baby. And to this day, Wizard of Oz is one of my all-time favorites, and partly because I'm a colorist, right? It's like, maybe one of the best uses of color ever, right? 1939, it's crazy what they did back then. It still holds up today. It's incredible, right? So that would definitely be up there for me. Back to the gangster films, Goodfellas. When we used to watch linear TV and you'd be clicking through the channels, any place that I stopped in that film, I would watch it to the end. It was just wherever I came in on that. Hopefully it was the beginning. It's, one of my all-time favorites. Really kind of, in my opinion, the pinnacle of filmmaking. It's so well done. Great use of Steadicam. I mean, there's so many iconic shots in that. So speaking of iconic shots, anything Hitchcock is all fantastic, but Vertigo, it's so in the zeitgeist of everything. There's, the use of forced perspective, the Vertigo shot, right? I mean, that's it's so iconic these days. I think that, when you go back and you watch something like that, it's masterful filmmaking, and it was with practical tricks. I always love things that are, you know, a practical use for something, right? And maybe that's because I'm on a computer all day long. So when something is done outside in the real world, it hits me so much more. Cinema, 사랑해. 네, 진짜 거짓말 아니야. Well, thank you guys. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for inviting me back.